Hey guys, it's Liv here. In today's video, I wanted to discuss what the most used Pokemon are currently as of the end of part 1 for Series 1, so then you guys know what to prepare yourselves for going into part 2 of Season 1, starting later tonight actually. It should be at around 7 p.m. EST, so if you guys enjoy it and are looking forward to this discussion video, leave a like below and subscribe. I was going to do a laddering session, but I didn't realize there would actually be time off in between the series, so couldn't get that video done, let's say. But with that said though, let's get started. So for anyone, I guess, who checked over the Pikalytic stats previously, I can't actually pull them up for some reason, but previously though, looking at the before season 1 stats, you would notice that, for example, Goldengo was the top mon, but it's actually changed, especially on the high ladder. This new top mon is actually Scarlet. This actually is consistent until you get to the lower rating of the ladder, and I will say these results are specifically in regards to the showdown set. We don't actually have one in regards to Battle Stadium, at least for the post series one, but that's okay. So we'll go over the showdown results, I guess, just because if nothing else, while it's not going to be 100%, it's something that you will still need to keep in mind going into just, I guess, part 2. But one of the most used mons right now is Scarlet. Now this is mostly just due to the fact that it's a really fast option. It's one of the fastest viable mons. To give a perspective on this, as far as Pokemon that are actually currently usable in the metagame, but do outpace Scarlet, there are practically none. We have, for example, Electrode, which is pretty terrible. We have Dragapult, which Dragapult's decent. We have Barraskewda, which is pretty niche. Jolteon is whatever, but it's used on the Dunsparce comp. Kilowattrel and Talonflame. We have Weavile, and then we have Scarlet, which does tie with Noivern, to be fair, so I guess I'll give Noivern the 8th just to give it a little bit of a buff. But in terms of faster Pokemon, we currently have Iron Bundle, Chien-Pao, and Fluttermane, all of which are currently banned from the format. So it's like 3 decently faster Pokemon right there, and they're not just a little bit faster. No, Bundle is like 136, meanwhile Chien-Pao and Fluttermane are both 135. So I will say, especially with the fact that none of these faster Pokemon besides Talonflame and Kilowattrel actually really even threaten Scarlet in any way, it definitely does help a lot. The signature move as well being Flower Trick, which currently has a 99.685% usage. Whoever was using this must not have realized I got Flower Trick and threw on like Seed Bomb or something, or just ran like no grass type move for some reason. But this is typically utilized as one of the better ways around Dondozo, at least pre-Terra. There are a lot of different Terra types that Dondozo runs that do threaten this, if nothing else. Stuff like Terra Dragon, Flying, and Grass, for example, all of which do take this hit pretty well. But overall, though, it does handle stuff like, for example, the Water-type Dondozos or the Ground-type Dondozos pretty easily. So it's considered a decent Dondozo check, too. But ultimately, one of the other niche things that this thing does actually get, or I wouldn't say niche actually, it's ran kind of decently, is Trick Room. This is actually considered a Trick Room setter. 15% of people are using this mon to set Trick Room, or at the very least to have the opportunity to set Trick Room, and it's pretty interesting actually. I think this is the fastest mon that I can personally think of that's ever really done this. I know that Mimikyu typically did it in the past, and even Nihilego did as well, and that's the only mon I can think of that broke 100 that did it. But Masquerade now completely sets that record, as far as I'm aware, at 123 speed. Goldengo's really doing the same things it did before: Choice Specs, Life Orb, Choice Scarf, Make It Rain. Pretty much these 4 moves are really the only ones you have to worry about. Once you get beyond this into stuff like Power Gem and Gleam, Plot, etc., these become a lot more circumstantial options. I will say Steel Beam is the only one that I would say is actually noteworthy to keep an eye on personally, and it's specifically on spec sets. Otherwise, I wouldn't really take Steel Beam seriously, and even still, there's a lot of other options you can go with. For example, you're probably, if on a spec set, you're probably considering one of Power Gem, Gleam, Trick, or also Steel Beam, which is why all of these have lower odds, because it's basically just that 4th move slot. But typically though, you're pairing this on Tailwind teams with stuff like Masquerade, Hydreigon, etc., and you're gonna do a lot of damage. One of the biggest surprise rises of this set, though, was Sylveon. Sylveon's now even past mons like Dondozo and Annihilate, at least in the high ladder. Though, if we do actually really quickly skim over, we can go to the 1630s, where Sylveon immediately drops from the 3rd most used Pokemon to the 9th most used. At 1500s, Sylveon does not even crack the top 10, and it is way lower on the not 1500s. Sylveon, if I remember correctly, I think is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12th on the 1500s, and it goes down even further. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 after Grim. 11, okay, so it's actually still 12. But the point being is that as far as highlighter goes, this is a huge trend upward for Sylveon. Sylveon, as far as I'm aware, was not even cracking top 5 beforehand. So the fact that Sylveon is now currently considered our 3rd best Pokemon, or at least maybe not 3rd best, but 3rd most used Pokemon, is definitely something. And it's for good reason, in my opinion. Sylveon's a great option on Trick Room teams, and with Tera Blast Fire, you're able to honestly hit a lot of things between Hyper Voice and Tera Blast. This mon is great in terms of not only handling Dondozo, but also it's a pretty decent partner for it, as this is a strong way with quick attack to at least get some sufficient damage off if the sash is broken on Meowscarada. I won't act like you're going to just outright OHKO it, but it's sufficient damage. You can typically run this thing with Throat Spray though, but Berry Berry is also really used for different random Steel Terrors, and ultimately this is a really strong option for teams. In terms of our next runners up, we do have Annihilate, which running a lot more actual leftover sets instead of the Scarf Final Gambit ones, which is a decent trend. I know beforehand a lot of people were using this for Final Gambit spam, which is pretty interesting. Then we have our 5th mon, which really, technically this is 5th with an asterisk to 6th, because you're almost never running Dondozo without Tatsugiri, though I guess there are teams that are. And I know there are teams that are running Tatsugiri without Dondozo, so there have to be even more. This isn't just like a 1.7-ish percentage. It's probably a closer disparity between how many teams are actually running these separately, which is pretty interesting to think about. Considering as well that 87% of teams that are using Dondozo are using Tatsugiri. I'll move this over a little bit so you guys can see, but 87% of teams are not using Tatsugiri. Well, 13% of teams are not using Tatsugiri. It's kind of wild to think about. Like, when you really outline it like that, it's kind of insane to think about. There are really teams out there that are specifically saying, let's use Dondozo, but let's not use it with Tatsugiri. And there's a considerable amount of them, it seems, which I only say considerable not because of the fact that it's like a common thing, but it is considerable considering how common this is thought of as a core. Typically teams are still running this with leftovers. It's actually by a wide margin of 82%. Chesto and Safety Goggles don't even make up half the rating, even if you combine them with other items. Typically this is being run with Protect, Wave Crash, and Order Up with Earthquake as well, though there is still other options like Terra Blast that are seeing considerable usage and even Substitute, but that has fallen off a good amount in usage. Same as Rest as well. We're even seeing Fisher Spike at over 10% usage, which is kind of incredible. Tatsugiri is pretty much always the Scarf set. Toxic Orb has actually fallen into complete obscurity. It's not even cracking a noteworthy item. It is considered an other item, which is pretty wild because that was like the first item everyone was running. So it's one of those cool meta trends. Otherwise though, Tatsugiri is pretty much the same. Pretty much always running these 4 moves with really the last spot being for whatever. Kind of shocked to see Soak getting usage though. The last couple noteworthy mons, I'm going to crack just open into the top 10. So we have 4 more mons. Hydreigon, we're seeing Scope Lens on the rise a lot, 26.163%. This is most likely due to Dondozo matchups. The Heat Wave set is really good. Ultimately, as far as the last move goes, you can run Dark Pulse, you can run Snarl, you can run Focus Energy as well, depending on the set. And really, the only reason Focus Energy ranks so low at minuscule 29% is because it's basically always paired with Scope Lens. So I guess there are some people running Focus Energy without Scope Lens, which is also kind of interesting. We have Amoonguss up next, pretty much the same. I mean, listen, Amoonguss will always just be Amoongussing. Rocky Helmet is taking majority of usage. Then we have a bunch of niche items like Mental Herb, Eject Packs, Berries, Resistance or otherwise, Black Sludge, etc. This thing has a lot of items, actually. I didn't even realize it was running room service, but I guess 0.9% isn't really running room service, I guess. This is mostly running Spore, Rage Powder, Pollen Puff, with Clear Smog being the 4th, typically. Though at the same time, this still has some other options like Leaf Storm, and then apparently other doesn't even account for Giga Drain separately, which is kind of weird because I would have assumed Giga Drain would have at least cracked a noteworthy mention, but who am I to judge? We have Murkrow, great support piece, typically Tailwind, Haze, Foul Play, and Taunt, with options like Quash, Raybird, Foul Play, Sunny Day, Icy Wind, Protect, etc. I don't get why Protect has this much usage. Truthfully, I don't think Protect should have been a mentioned move, but at the same time though, if people are running it, it's clearly getting usage. I'm just not sure why it's getting usage. At the same time though, Violet is mostly what you're running, though apparently Covert Cloak is getting actual usage to be at least discerned from the other category, which is kind of cool. Apparently there's some people who accidentally got Insomnia, but not even any noteworthy mentions for Super Luck, which is kind of funny. And then finally you have Garchomp. Garchomp is the only one of these top 10 that did not crack 20% usage. We have stuff like Earthquake and Dragon Claw with Protect and Sword Stance being the most common moves, though we have stuff like Rock Slide, Tantrum, etc. being common as well. We have Life Orb and Clear Mail being the most used items. This makes a lot of sense. It's typically what everyone's running. Kind of shocked, truthfully, to see any sort of noteworthy mention for Saltbuster Citrus. I've never really seen it, actually. But it's cool to see that. I mean, I think these are good options on Garchomp personally, especially in tanky Garchomps. So it's cool to see it mentioned. Now I do want to skip ahead a bit. I want to just really quickly go over mons that do get into the next sets, but I'm not really going to go over what changed about them because I don't really think we need to. Moving on to our next mons, we have for 11 and 12, for 11 we have Mousehold, 12 is Armrouge, and I'm kind of shocked to see such a big jump between Armrouge and Indeedee. It's a whole 6% jump, which is actually kind of insane. We have Kingambit, Grimmsnarl, and Arcanine all ranking above it, with mons like Dragonite coming right after. Moving on to the 12% to 8% range, we have Talonflame, Volcarona, Azumarill, Baxcalibur, and Skeledirge. Seeing Skeledirge and Baxcalibur both rise in usage is actually pretty cool. I think they're both actually objectively really good mons, especially Skeledirge. I think Skeledirge is actually a super Septon pick. It's one of the best Dentozo counters you can really make because there's not really good Dentozo Terra type that actually gets around this plus Terra Fairy. So I do think this is objectively like just a good Dentozo type. Really, even Steel does kind of struggle if you get the Trick Room matchup right, because you do have to go for Torch Song, and even still, something like an Iron Head isn't going to do a lot of damage because you do have the Unaware aspect going for you. So yeah, Skeledirge I think objectively speaking just is a good Pokemon, and I'm not sure why more people are not running it. I'd love to see this thing crack 10% usage next part 2 of the series, because I think it deserves it. Moving on, it's kind of funny, we have all three of these ranking right after each other. We go Pelipper, Torkoal, and Tyranitar in that order. I'll be honest, didn't expect to see Pelipper topping that. I'm kind of shocked it's ranking above Torkoal, but that, I don't know. Highlighter might be built different, but I'm kind of shocked because I just figured that Torkoal is a lot better of a standalone mon. It doesn't really require weather, which actually we could see that if we pull up Lilligant's usage, considering Lilligant is 0.55, and if we pull up Scovillain as well as 0.43, even if we pull up Leafeon, it's 0.17. I'm curious. Yeah, solar power mons are not really ranking high either, so it's not like Torkoal's needing to be run on Sun. It's just that most people aren't running Torkoal, which is kind of weird to think about. But Pelipper is ranking up here. It's probably just because it's a weather option. This is a lot of good partners, to be fair. Stuff like, for example, Palafin, which you can actually see later down on the list. You can also, later on, if you go really low, see stuff like Floatzel, Quackaball, etc. But ultimately, this thing has some good partners, though. But Torkoal's still pretty decent. Just a lot of Wide Guard spam, I think, has been hurting it with stuff like Garganacl, Hariyama, which also shows in both of them making this next range in usage. Especially Garganacl hitting a whopping 6.46. Pretty good mon. Honestly, I pretty underestimated this thing by a considerable amount. Underestimated of the whole gen, in my opinion. Mimikyu is still doing a pretty decent option at Trick Room, though. With T-Tar also just being a great option, whether it's Sand for Lycanroc or just a good Terra option. So that's pretty cool. Taurus, Petalite, and Water proving to be the best of the Taurus forms, hitting a really impressive usage. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't actually think Taurus would be hitting this high of a usage mark, but it seems to be a pretty good Intimidate option, and Water Fighting is just an objectively good typing. I could even see this thing being a good option of Rain. I'm not sure if it's being run with Rain, but let's actually check that out. So it looks like currently it's not cracking the noteworthy partners, which is understandable. Palafin obviously taking the top of that list as far as waters go, makes a lot of sense. And as you can see with Palafin, its most common partner is Pelipper, so again, makes a lot of sense here. Palafin hitting such a obnoxious amount, I guess, with Choice Band makes a lot of sense. It's a really good Choice Banded breaker. Up next, we'll see Rotom Wash being the most used Rotom form, with Fergraf being a really noteworthy Trick Room option. We get into Pult here finally, which Pult again is a really good mon. We have Hariyama, which Hariyama, I will say, I expect this thing to crack 10% on next format. That might be a bit of a bold take, but Hariyama has been killing it lately, and I think it's one of those things that got a lot of usage, especially towards the very end of the format. While it was obviously getting used beforehand, I think that stuff like Wide Guard Hariyama as well as Terra Dark Hariyama are both going to be things to watch out for, and I think that this usage does not reflect how good it currently is in the format. It's one of those mons similar to Skeledirge. I would be genuinely shocked if it doesn't at least crack like the 8 to 10% in the next set. Skeledirge, I do expect it to just objectively pass 10%, but for Hariyama's case, I think 8 would make a lot of sense. Ultimately, though, this will be a decent option. I will say I don't expect Frigg to go up in tandem with it, solely because I do think that this is actually splitting usage with Oranguru, both of which I think are really good Trick Room partners for Hariyama. While Fergraf is actually seeing more usage currently, Oranguru, it doesn't even mention partners. What the fuck? I think Oranguru is actually the better option here. Just solely because of Instruct, I think it pairs really well in tandem with Hariyama, Torkoal, and Oranguru, and I think the three of them are monstrous to play around right now. Especially with Hariyama being a really strong single target physical option. Meanwhile, Torkoal's a really good spread option, and honestly, Oranguru works well with both of them. Though I do get the logic in Frigg, I think it's still a really good option. I'm just kind of shocked that Oranguru doesn't crack the 10 common partners is all. But they're both really good. Galliot is another one. I'm kind of shocked again to see this so low. It's a really good Dondozo check, and I would argue it's even more consistent than Meowscarada, and it's about as consistent as Skeledirge. But considering the fact that realistically with Psycho Cut and Leaf Blade, you're able to hit every single Terra type for at least neutral, if not super effective, that Dondozo would go into, besides Terra Steel, which you have Sacred Sword for, you can literally essentially guarantee you're going to get around any sort of common Dondozo Terra type. And even if it did adapt into stuff like Terra Psychic, you'd always throw on Night Slash in the build, which also again helps a lot. Ultimately, I'm kind of shocked to see Galliot usage so low. I would have genuinely anticipated this hit like a 6 or 7%, but who knows, I think that next format again will be pretty kind to Galliot. Ultimately, it's, in my opinion, one of the best options you could throw on a team around Dondozo. So I'm kind of shocked with how high Dondozo's usage is to see this thing so low. Moving on to the next set of Pokemon, we do see some stuff actually that is reflected a lot in current trends. For one, I'm actually going to start with the bottom because I did mention it earlier. Oranguru. Oranguru is getting some nice usage. I think realistically the only reason this is so low is because it's fighting for usage with Ferrigaf, which is understandable. They're both really good options. One area this does typically end up getting used on a lot more than Ferrig though is in tandem with the Bellibolt comps, which is why you'll see Bellibolt, Torkoal, and Oranguru, because this thing does get telepathy, which is very valuable with that. And you could instruct Parabolic Charge or Discharge on Bellibolt, which is really actually incredible for it. But ultimately though, it's still a really good trick room option. It's still a valuable one in my opinion, just it's getting used less than Ferrig. But we'll go up next back to the top. I just wanted to cover that because I already discussed it. Next up is Pawmot. Pawmot's definitely a pretty decent option that's been getting a lot of usage lately because of Revival Blessing. Revival Blessing has proven to be very valuable in VGC as well, being able to revive a Pokemon in a 4v4 setting. Honestly, who would have thought that would be good? But Pawmot, honestly, also just having Fake Out is a huge edge over something like Grabska. It's also a great fast option, so it's valuable in terms of Trick Room. And in terms of Tailwind, it gets priority even outside of Fake Out through Mach Punch, which is really good. You're typically running this with the Iron Fist, though it seems like actually a considerable amount of people are running this with Volt Absorb, 27%, which is something to think about. But typically though, it's running Elemental Punches in close combat, which I guess is probably only run on like Life Orb sets or Bandit sets. And then obviously you have Double Shock, which is extremely valuable actually. With Terra Electric, you can click this and it does not actually take away your Terra Electric, which is pretty cool. So it's a really strong option for Pawmot actually. If you're looking to Terra this thing, it's considerably damaging in my opinion. We have Lycanroc up next. This is the premier Sand Sweeper right now, so it makes a lot of sense. This is 3.94. Focus Sash is really the only item that's seeing a lot of usage, though other is covered here, obviously stuff like Hearthstone, and the choice Ben Lycanroc still a threat. I'm kind of upset this thing didn't crack an actual noteworthy usage. For anyone watching this, let's get Banded Lycanroc to at least a noteworthy slot in part 2 of the format. I would love to see it. Because I do think it's actually good. I think it's good. But Focus Sash, obviously, you know, it's the least risky option. So I get it having such a huge leap in usage. But it's typically running Endure, Endeavor, Rock Slide in close combat. Endure, Endeavor is obviously to guarantee that you're going to get Endeavor. And then you could break them on down to 1%. Kill them off with Sand. And that's pretty valuable. You still have stuff like close combat, Psychic Fangs, Protect, Accelerac. I'm kind of shocked to not see Play Rough here. I think it's, even bias aside, I think it's objectively a good option around Garchomp, which is probably one of the better switch-ins that currently exists in the format to this. So I'm kind of shocked to not see Play Rough. At least, again, as a mentioned option, but who am I to judge? We're going to get into Gengar up next, which really just, again, similarly to Lycanroc, just a fast Focus Sash option. Though this one is preferred to more so be a speed control option instead of an Endeavor breaker, with stuff like Icy Wind. Also getting Haze, which is pretty decent for Dondozo for manual Haze. Taunt is really good. Perish Song is really good in tandem with Gothitelle, which Gothitelle is also seeing some good usage with partners like Azumarill and Gengar. Obviously, you can't really go wrong with the Fake Out set. Fake Out, Trick Room, and then you obviously have Hypnosis, you have Psychic, Protect, Heal Pulse. Heal Pulse especially is really good support, especially on Draco comps for stuff like Ozzy, for example, to keep it as alive as possible. Goth is, though, really good mon. Expect this thing to get used more in later parts of the format. Here's the other Tauros Paldean form that's actually getting usage. The other one's pretty shit in my opinion. But Intimidate, again, really most noteworthy ability here. Life Orb sets are really good. AV sets are really good as well. And honestly, you can go for Terra Fire on this and make it a really incredible Sylveon Sponge and go for like Raging Bull. And between that as well as stuff like Rock Slide, you're able to handle any common Sylveon Terra type, whether Raging Bull just to damage Fairy or Rock Slide, which is really good for potential Terra Fire sets. So honestly, I kind of expect this thing to get a bit more of a bump in usage just solely because of Sylveon, especially with Sylveon hitting nearly 40% usage, well actually nearly 30% usage. I would be shocked if this thing doesn't at least crack like 5-6. Moving on though, we do have Scarlet. Scarlet, honestly, this makes a lot of sense. I think Scarlet is a decent option with Clear Amulet. I'm kind of shocked though to see leftover sets rising on this much, but I'm gonna guess it's in tandem with bulk up. So I get the logic. It's just kind of shocked because I've really only seen Clear Amulet and potentially Life Orb being used. But this is a really good option. It's a great priority option as well for Ghost. It's a really good Ghost physical attacker, which the typing does severely lack. So cool to see. Really, the only other one is Mimikyu, and I wouldn't exactly call that a physical attacker. It's just a mon that happens to use physical moves. Gilawattrel, really good manual Tailwind option. Outside of Talonflame, it's probably the best one that's not Prankster, though Talonflame counts enough with Gale Wings on turn 1. We have Rotom Heat. Rotom Heat's a good Rotom form. The one edge Rotom Heat does have over Rotom Wash is probably the fact that you could just beat Amoonguss outright with this, which is pretty valuable. But ultimately, though, the usage makes a lot of sense here. Quackavolt makes a lot of sense. It's really good cleaner. Kind of shocked that it hit this high, but you know what? I'll take it. I'm also shocked to see Razor Claw hit such a high usage amount. I genuinely did not think that Razor Claw would actually be hitting this, but apparently it's similar to Scope Lens, where it's just a crit ratio thing, which kind of shocked. I guess people are running this with Focus Energy. Might need to keep that in mind. We do see Ments up here. Not really too shocked to see Ments hitting 2.63. Truthfully, I'm kind of shocked that it's a little bit lower, but I think it's more so pre-meta me. I think in hindsight, stuff like Dry and Chomp, etc. is just outright classing it right now, so it makes sense. And finally, Gastrodon here. Gastrodon's mostly just really good Dondozo check, and I think this is probably one of the best defensive ones you can get as far as switching goes, outside of stuff like Scarlet, which I think is the best defensive one. But between the fact that you have Storm Drain, you could probably go for something like a Terra Fairy and just outright wall Dondozo, go for Clear Smog, clear its stats, which I will say, not only is the fact that Gastrodon can wall Dondozo perfectly, but also the fact it can get rid of its stat boost is an edge that it has over Skeledirge, which Skeledirge can only just get around them, which this would mean that a partner Pokemon could also in theory beat Dondozo for you, which is, it's a cool niche that this thing does have over something like Skeledirge as far as defensive checking goes. We're going to go over one more wave of Mons just to show the top 50. I believe this should be roughly 50. I might have been a little over. I'm pretty sure we're still only showing 10. Nope, we're showing a little more than 10. Okay, so then I guess this is like a little over 50, but who knows. Bombasnow's up next. Bombasnow makes a lot of sense. Really good Failmon. Ice typing as well with Hail has been so good for this thing bulky in terms of tanky sets. Really good for setting up for stuff like Garchomp. King Gambit apparently has a lot of usage with this mon, which makes a lot of sense. Nihilape also, again, being the most common partner, makes a lot of sense. Truthfully, I'm shocked to not see Garchomp make the list. I figured Garchomp was a good partner, but there's a lot of good mons that benefit from this, to be fair. Gyarados is up next. Good Intimidate Mon. Not too shocked to see it around Ments' usage, truthfully. I am shocked to see Clear Amulet so low on the usage, only 14%. But still objectively a really good Terra Mon. With their Terra Flying, Grass, etc. This is a monster. Gardevoir, I know a lot of this usage is coming from later in the format. Randy was telling me this is a huge highlighter meta trend towards the end of the gen. So I do actually genuinely not even bias included. I objectively expect this thing to be trending up towards like the 4 or 5%, or at least up from 2.13, considering a lot of people apparently are using this as a Trick Room or Prison Mon, or even just a good Scarfer to get around stuff like Dondozo with Trace, for example, to Trace Unaware. So I do, objectively speaking, expect this Mon to rise in usage significantly. We have as well the Brillium, which Brillium is a decent option with Sash. It's a good fast spore option, which is a lot better in terms of, I think it's actually the only other Spore Mon. I was going to say it's a lot better than other Spore Mons, but I think, yeah, this is really the only other one besides Toedscruel, which I guess it's better than Toedscruel, but like, that's not a high mark to set. But overall though, Brillium's still pretty decent, great priority option, which is another benefit it has over Amoonguss. Jumpluff, kind of shocked to see Jumpluff getting usage like this, but ultimately really good Tailwind option with Rage Powder, and Pollen Puff still gets Manual Seep Powder, so makes a lot of sense. Tinkaton, really good AV Mon, really good to get around inner focus shit, which makes a lot of sense. With Fake Out, it's really valuable. AV is really decent. It's really all I have to say. Gigaton Hammer. I'm kind of shocked to see this Mon hitting usage. I don't want to talk about it. I don't like that it's getting usage. I get why. It's Terra Steel, Terra Electric, etc. You obviously have good speed control with Focus Sash. I don't like it just getting usage though. Dreadnought, really good rain option with Rock Slide, Liquidation, Protect, Ice Spinner. You also have stuff like Mega Horn, Shell Smash. Decent options. Really good Shell Smash option for rain, because the Shell Smash obviously helps not only boost its rain sweeping even further, but it also helps keep a speed that's actually threatening outside of rain, which is pretty valuable. Salazzle, good Fake Out Mon. Oblivious is really valuable here. Makes a lot of sense, obviously, why this is used. Rotom, this is the rain option as far as Rotoms go. It can take on stuff like Gastrodon pretty easily, but I don't know why you really bring a Rotom for Gastrodon at this point. It's really the only Storm Drain Mon, and really it's the only Mon that you actually need to bring Rotom Mow over Rotom Wash for, I guess. So really, I don't know why a lot of these mons that are partners, barring Pelipper and Barraskewda, aren't really rain threats, because typically I would assume this would be running on rain teams, but really I can't think of another use for Rotom Mow otherwise. Sableye up next. Truthfully, I'm kind of shocked this thing hit 1.39, and it's not that I think it's bad, I actually think it's valuable, but it's just more so with Murkrow and Grim competing with it, it's just kind of shocking to see it this high. Finally, though, we do have Avalugg at 1.38. This one I did objectively have a lot of issue with until I realized this is a Trick Room Wide Guard option, and it's a pretty decent one at that. You can go for something like Terra Fighting and go for just body press spamming, and honestly, I'm kind of shocked it's not a little higher. I think this is a pretty cool option, though. I'm kind of glad to see this thing hitting so high in the format. I will say, though, one mon that I'm not sure if I just missed over. Okay, yeah, Grim was 15%. I might have just glossed over Grim, to be honest, because I didn't think I saw Grim. Oh, you know, yeah, I said with these three, so that's why I glossed over Grim, because I was very worried when I saw Sableye. I was like, wait a second, I didn't cover Grim. But overall, though, that's the list today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and if you did enjoy this insight to the highlighter meta, leave a like below, and let me know what the most surprising mon you guys saw in the usage was today, and let me know if there's something that I didn't cover that you guys wanted the usage for. I could post it down below, but I'm also just going to pin a comment with this at some point when I'm off of work today. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. With that said, shout out to channel members, of course. We do have currently 6 channel members, being Joshika Ultra Player, Mia, Zeke Zero, Matt O'Shea, Nox Nocturnal, and Koemi. You guys' support is greatly appreciated, and if you want to become a channel member today, we did have a video going up as of yesterday for channel members, being my thoughts on my first tournament run for Scarlet and Violet. So if that interests you and you want to see more, click the channel member button down below, as well as links to Twitter and Discord to stay up to date on future content. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, peace out, guys.